I'm your host, Sirkin, and welcome to Today in History, the show where we dive into the most fascinating events that shaped our world. Today, August 14th, 2026, is just an ordinary day for most of us, but trust me, it's a day that's steeped in history. As we go about our daily lives, it's easy to forget that on this exact day, 73 years ago, a monumental event took place, one that would change the course of human history forever. So, sit back, relax, and let's take a journey through time to August 14, 1945, a day that will be etched in our collective memory for generations to come. It's a day that started like any other, with the sun rising over the war-torn cities of Europe and Asia. The world was exhausted, battered by the relentless onslaught of World War II. The Allies had been fighting for years, and the tide of the war had finally begun to turn in their favor. The Soviet Union had declared war on Japan, and the United States had unleashed its atomic arsenal on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Japanese government, realizing that the war was lost, had been secretly negotiating a surrender, but the terms were still unclear. As the day wore on, the tension mounted, and the world held its breath, waiting for news from the other side of the globe. In Tokyo, Japan, the Supreme Council for the Direction of the War, a group of high-ranking officials, had gathered in an underground bunker to discuss the terms of surrender. The Japanese government had been divided, with some officials advocating for a continued fight to the death, while others, led by Emperor Hirohito, pushed for a negotiated peace. The Allies, however, were adamant that Japan must surrender unconditionally, and the Japanese government knew that any attempt to negotiate would be met with resistance. As the council debated, the clock ticked away, and the world waited with bated breath for the announcement that would change the course of history. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., President Harry Truman was pacing back and forth in the Oval Office, waiting for news from Tokyo. The United States had borne the brunt of the war in the Pacific, and the American people were eager for a swift and decisive victory. Truman had made it clear that the only acceptable terms were unconditional surrender, and he was willing to do whatever it took to achieve that goal. As the day wore on, the president's patience wore thin, and he began to wonder if the Japanese would ever agree to the terms. And then, just after 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the news finally came. The Japanese government had agreed to surrender unconditionally, and the war was effectively over. The news spread like wildfire, and people poured onto the streets, cheering, crying, and hugging each other in celebration. In Times Square, New York City, a massive crowd gathered, waving flags and banners, as the iconic ticker tape parade made its way down Broadway. It was a moment of pure joy, a moment that would be etched in the memories of those who lived through it for the rest of their lives. As the news spread, the world began to breathe a collective sigh of relief. The war was over, and a new era of peace and cooperation could begin. The Japanese surrender marked the end of a brutal and devastating conflict that had claimed millions of lives and left countless others scarred and broken. It was a moment of hope, a moment that would pave the way for a new world order, one that would be built on the principles of justice, equality, and freedom. But as we celebrate this momentous occasion, let's not forget the human cost of war. The survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the prisoners of war, the families who lost loved ones, and the countless others who were affected by the conflict, their stories are a testament to the devastating power of war and the importance of working towards a more peaceful and harmonious world. As we look back on this day, 73 years ago, let's remember the lessons of history and strive to create a world where such conflicts are a thing of the past. As I sit here, reflecting on this momentous day, I'm reminded of the power of human resilience and the importance of never giving up, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. The Japanese surrender marked the end of a long and brutal war, but it also marked the beginning of a new era of peace and cooperation. And as we move forward, let's hold on to that sense of hope and optimism, and work towards creating a world that's more just, more equal, and more free. So, that's the story of August 14, 1945, a day that will be remembered for generations to come. It's a story of war and peace, of hope and despair, and of the human spirit's capacity to persevere in the face of overwhelming adversity. As we close this episode of Today in History, I want to leave you with a sense of awe and appreciation for the complexity and richness of human experience. Join me next time as we explore more fascinating stories from the past and discover the hidden connections that bind us all together. Until then, goodbye, and thank you for listening.